At chess at beginner level, you're going to lose quite a few games from openings, blunders, and traps. A lot of opening traps that end up you blundering a piece can very easily be avoided if you just know these traps beforehand. If you've never seen an opening trap, it's very easy to either lose a piece, lose the game, or just be in a much worse position. Today I'm going to show you just 5 opening traps for both black and white at beginner level. Some of these opening traps I don't actually recommend you playing yourself, as they're almost like cheap wins and don't follow good opening principles, but all of them are very good to know. Some of them are a bit basic and you've probably heard of them, and other ones are more unique. So the first opening trap which I'm going to mention, and I'm literally going to explain this in less than about 60 seconds or so, is the Scholar's Mate. And this is one of the worst openings for white, so if someone plays this against you, make sure you know what you're doing so you don't lose a piece or lose the game easily. Generally speaking, you probably know this opening already, and it only really works on people that don't know how to play chess. So it starts off when white plays e4, black plays e5, and on the second move, white plays queen h5, which straight away you can tell is just a bad move because you're not really supposed to bring your queen out early. And then let's say black makes a random move, pushes his pawn to kick the queen. Black's actually using already because then white can take the pawn with a check, and then once black blocks the check, white then wins the rook, and white's completely winning here. So make sure you don't fall for that. But here, let's just say black develops this knight, defending the pawn. White plays the moves bishop c4, and the whole purpose of this is you're threatening mate on 1 on the f7 square. So if black makes a normal move like developing the knight, or even the bishop, black wins on a mate on 1 on f7. There are multiple ways to defend against this, such as bringing your queen out to defend this square, or even just pushing this pawn. Now this knight defends the centre pawn. So it is really easy, and generally speaking, white's probably a bit worse here just because their queen ends up getting kicked about. So a common move here is white bringing the queen back to f3, still going for the same idea of mating on 1. Black can very easily just jump in with the knight, and now black's developed the 2 knights, and white's still got 3 minor pieces undeveloped, which is pretty poor. So I don't recommend you playing that. The second opening trap is an opening trap when the Caro-Kann is played. So this starts with e4, and then black obviously plays c6 with the plan of playing d5. In this position white knows this, so white's going to play the move c3, and then when white plays the move d5, black simply makes a strange looking e2 move. White simply makes a strange looking e2 move with the queen. And the whole point of this, if black takes this pawn, white can take back with the knight, and a common theme in the Caro-Kann is to develop the black knight to d7, and if black does this, white wins on the spot with a smothered mate on d6, which is a very nice looking mate. And that's the whole point of putting this queen on e2, paralyse the e7 pawn for black. Now in this position it's very common that black will actually develop this bishop first, and let's say white plays a random move like developing this knight, and then black goes d7 again. White can again make the same checkmate. So there's a couple of variations of this mate. You're not going to see this very often as you need that specific order of moves and position to mate black, but it's a very good checkmate as a lot of people don't know it, and it's also useful to know. So if, generally speaking, if you're in this position and black doesn't make any of those moves, you just have to carry on playing a normal game of chess and probably move this queen at some point so you can get this bishop out and develop your knights and bishops. The third opening trap is called the fried liver, which is also very popular at beginner level, and it's definitely worth knowing. So it starts with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop f4, which is the Italian game. And just like the Scholar's Mate in the first opening trap, the whole point is we're trying to target the f7 pawn, but this time with the knight. So what white wants to do is move their knight to g5 and then to f7 to create a fork for black's queen and rook. However, the only problem with this is black is currently defending the g5 square with the queen. So in this position, if black makes the move knight f6, white can actually go ahead and deliver knight g5 for ending this attack. And let's say black makes a random move and pushes this pawn, white can actually then deliver this fork, attacking both the queen and the rook. Most likely black's going to move the queen, and then white literally wins a rook. Now it's definitely not over for black here, but white is in a much better position, and there's no solid way of taking this knight back either. For black, a common way to defend this is just develop the bishop before the knight. Because in this instance, let's say you still want to go g5 but the bishop's developed, and let's say white pushes the pawn and then black develops the knight. Once white goes g5, black can simply just castle, And here white can't actually do anything, because if you attack the f7 pawn, yes, you win a pawn and a rook, but you've lost 2 of your developed minor pieces in exchange for 2 of black's undeveloped pieces, which probably isn't worth it at this stage of the game. And the engine actually says black's got a better position here with more central activity. It is worth knowing, if you do end up in this position about to face an f7 attack, you can actually push this d5 pawn. And the whole point here is after d5, white's most likely going to take back with the pawn, and once this is played, black can actually go a5 attacking this bishop. And if white moves the bishop back, you can take the bishop with the knight, or if white just goes here and delivers a check, you can push the pawn, and then again after a couple pawn exchanges, you're still attacking this bishop, which kind of neutralises this threat, because then the bishop will have to go all the way back to d3, which is actually blocking the d pawn, and then black can just develop as normal with no threat. This is something that is played a lot at beginner levels, so it's definitely worth knowing about it so you can defend. The fourth opening trap is the Blackburn Shilling, and this time we're going to be playing as black. This is a very unpopular one as well, so it's definitely worth knowing to play against people. It's not like the Scholar's Mate where I would say don't play that against people. You can actually use this in a game. So this one starts with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4. So it's another Italia game, but this time we're playing as black. And the whole point here is, instead of playing a normal move like bishop f5, that's going to actually jump in with the knight. And the whole point here is you want to bait white into taking this e5 pawn. And when black plays e5 with the knight, you simply play g5 with the queen, attacking both the knight and also the g2 pawn, which would then eventually go on to win a rook. Now white might think they're very clever here and have plans of their own, like attacking the f7 pawn, and here white would most likely want to play knight f7 because they're forking the rook and the queen, and also moving the knight out the way of the queen. Here black is actually winning in this position because they can completely ignore the attack and go queen g2, attacking the rook. And the only safe move to defend this rook now is moving the rook all the way across to f1 where the king protects it, but now white's king looks very cramped, and black can play the move queen e4, winning the pawn and checking the king. And white has 2 ways to defend against this. The first one is with the queen, where we can see here the queen's just going to get taken by the knight, and after some exchanges black's just up heavy material. So most likely they'll try and defend with the bishop, which is simply just mating 1, because then black has this beautiful move f3, which again is another smothered mate with the idea of the queen neutralising the bishop so the bishop can't move. This is a very good beginning trap, as I've fell for this a few times myself at beginner level. If in this position here, white ignores the pawn but just wants to trade, then this is still okay for black, but you just have to watch out because realistically this pawn is probably going to be a weakness. White has a better centre, and it's going to be quite hard to probably hold on to this pawn later down the line. So there is a downside to this opening if you are going to play it. You could end up having just the worst position on move 3. Now the last opening trap I'm going to show you is the Portuguese Gambit, and this is also another opening with black. And it starts with white playing e4, but black immediately playing d5. And in this position, white oftentimes takes the pawn, and you're not going to take back with the queen. What you're going to do here is develop the knight to f6, attacking this pawn. Because this pawn's been attacked twice, a lot of times white's going to play c4 to defend the pawn. Here black wants to give up another pawn for a better position, so they're going to push e6. And then most likely white's going to take this pawn, and you just develop the bishop to e6. So here, even though you've sacrificed the pawn, you've got some good piece activation, with the bishop staring down the pawn, the queen staring down the d-file, and the knight covering the centre. Now it might be very rare, but if white here plays a move d4, trying to gain some of the centre, then you can go bishop b4, delivering a check. And if white blocks with knight c3, you can simply jump your knight into the action and put more pressure on this knight. And again, white's still technically fine here because they can defend with the queen, either move with the queen to d3 or even c2, but then you can play the move bishop f5, lining this bishop up with the white queen, which is a very nasty move. Now this isn't exactly winning a piece in this position, and there's so many different variations just from this position on the board here, but ultimately black has got a better position here, and there's no clear-cut win. You're not necessarily checkmating the king or winning a queen in this gambit, but you are just giving up a pawn out the centre for a very strategic advantage. One of the reasons why I like this so much, it's quite a brave opening for black against white playing e4, which is what most people play, either e4 or d4, so it gives you a chance to practice this opening a lot. And I would personally recommend looking at different moves in this opening. So for example, in this position, if white tries to defend with the bishop here, look at the engine and look at what is the best move here, is the best move to take, and then try and continue developing. White has quite a few moves before they can even think about castling short, so whether black can castle short on the next move. So you do have some advantages in this position, and I do think it's a good opening and probably one of the best openings. I wouldn't necessarily call it an opening trap, but it's a opening gambit where you sacrifice material for a better position. But there's 5 opening traps or gambits, or however you want to label them, that you can play as a beginner and are good to know in case someone plays on you. There are obviously loads out there, so don't just look at these 5, go away and look at more, because they are quite common. But thank you for watching, and I hope you've learned something in this video.